Hello everyone, it's Christine here and I'm back to do some work on my Roxy Journal of Stitchery treasure hunt piece. So I've had to bring my camera right up to try and give you at least a bit of perspective on where I am up to on the piece. And even then there's quite a bit up above where you can actually see. But you've already seen me working on my thread painted flower, which is down here. I've got beautiful lace that stretches over here. I've got the original monogram that Betty stitched into the blanket, which then travelled out to Australia with her from Budapest after the war. I've got this beautiful grape fabric with birds, which I've been stitching into, which we can have a look at in a moment. I've got trims around here. I've added some more vintage trims along the base and some beautiful lace up the side. This is a handmade lace, so very precious to me lace. And then I've been adding some further treasures, which is what I want to focus on today and just take you through what I've actually been doing with these. So I have added a little random thread there, this beautiful very old antique, I'm pretty sure. I've not actually washed it. It's got some some age marks and some staining on it, because I think it's got like a piece of card that is inserted into the back, and I think it probably used to be used to keep maybe a handkerchief or something in. So I've never given it a wash, so it does have a bit of aging marks, but I just absolutely adore it. It's always been a treasure in my collection, and now it's stitched down to save it within this piece. And I thought it was lovely to have the imagery of butterflies, which have always been something I really loved, and sort of the sense of Betty fleeing from and becoming free and coming out to Australia. And so I have stitched in this word freedom also in the gap between where the butterfly is and the piece that I particularly stitched for my Nana with buttons and a beautiful quote from Rumi on it, which you can see in a previous video. So I've got some work today to do where I'll show you how I'm stitching down the butterflies. They've been cut out of a fabric, which I'll show you in a moment. I've added this little piece that says Vin de Corse on it, so that's like wine of Corsica. It's got a beautiful Italian scene. It's like a tapestry fabric, so I just took a little section of that. And again, winemaking has quite a bit of significance for Alex's family. His brother's a winemaker, and then the reference to Italy is where his father's from. And it's also, Italy's a place that's really close in our hearts, and we've spent many happy times and many happy months within Italy, including in beautiful Corsica. So that's a lovely reference for us. This gold buckle is from Alex's mum, and so I've now stitched that on just with a quite thick gold perle thread, and then I've also stitched it down at the back where it had a little buckle. I've decided to put it separate, almost like it sort of locks on the gates of an Italian village. In some ways, the insignia actually reminds me of, I think, like Sienna. I'll have to look it up, but yeah, it reminds me of, it's got little people and it's got a heart and other things on it. So it's a really, really lovely reference. And by stitching it down separately, it's sitting flatter against the piece, which is great. So yeah, we'll come back to the butterflies. I've now stitched down some really beautiful, very old antique lace over here, and I'm thinking I'll add the little ANC button and this little piece that I've painted, and I think that could fit in quite nicely up here. So I thought we'll finish doing some lettering. I'll bring you down in a moment, get you to close your eyes in a moment and take you down a bit closer to the piece so we can do some lettering and we can do some work on the butterflies. I'll show you how I work on the top of the blanket so I don't have to hold it up, because it can be quite hard when you're working on a large format piece like this. And then, yeah, we'll just have a bit of a think about what else we want to do in the hour that we've got together. I might even do some thread painting on the little bird down here and over here and possibly over here. And we can also, finish off doing the leaves here, or we could possibly start to move across the piece. So I'll bring you down. Close your eyes if you get seasick with being brought down. So we'll come down, I think, oops, just coming down. So we might pop ourselves here where we can see our, actually we'll need to come up a little bit further across where we can see our butterflies, and we'll get stitching those down. And can we see, yeah, we can see our freedom writing as well. So I might actually start with that. I'm using some of this beautiful yarn that I got from, looking for the label. Oops, let me get one out that will be a bit easier to get out of the drawer. The other one's attached to the threads still, from Carlund Yarn, Spinning Artisan Yarn in Australia. So I got some wonderful mixed mill end sort of bundles, or spinning mill bundles. So they're just little sections, but it's just the most glorious. This is just a super, super soft, could be even be an Angora, I'm not sure. It doesn't have the sort of full fluff, but it's just lovely, and it's variegated and gorgeous. So that's what I've used to stitch this little freedom within this section here. And what I did was just stitched it just with sort of individual, I guess, running stitches or back stitches actually joined up to each other, but quite spread out. Like I did the F all as one piece. And then what I've gone back and done is just done some little wound stitching around the letters just to add a bit of extra dimension and bulk to them. So let me, and I hope you can't hear the thunder or it's not going to be too disruptive outside. There's a bit of a storm rolling across. It's not raining here yet, and I don't know if it's kind of just rolling to either side of where we are. So I'll put a little knot in place. I'll then come through from the back of the fabric. So I've done the M, I've been working backwards, and then, yeah, I've done the E, I think. Yeah, I've still got to do the length of the E, I think, the long bit of the E, the vertical bit of the E. So what I'm doing is just popping through from the back, and then I'm going to just pass my needle under where I've got that stitch in place. So I'm just putting like 2 little twists around, and then I'm going to continue down. And it's okay if you catch a tiny, like I caught a tiny bit of the underneath lace in that stitch. But I'm just wrapping the threads really. So it's a little bit like a whip stitch, but it's not going individually between. And then when I get to the end of a section, I just take myself to the back, and then I'll pop up at the next point I want to start wrapping, which will be over here. So I hope you can see. I don't think you can. I'm going to just bring it down a little bit. Apologies if you couldn't see that. So again, I'm just going to pop out, and then I'm just going to wrap around. So I'm just wrapping my thread under just to give some extra bulk and definition to the letters. And it's lovely because it's adding just a bit of variegated colour as well. And so this was a fun one, just to stitch in the word freedom, just because the butterfly, yeah, for me symbolised that escape, that freedom, that new life. And then coming up to this beautiful piece as well with the quote from Rumi, which is, out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field, I will meet you there. And that's the piece that I've put the beautiful buttons from Nana and some other buttons from my vintage collection of buttons on there, and written a little love Nana down here. Because my Nana and Grandpa were very much pacifists and very much believed in a world where, yeah, we didn't fight each other. So really happy with how this piece is coming together. I'm really happy that I've started adding more pieces onto it, and it's just really lovely creating that sort of intensity of stitching and elements, etc. I just love how everything's starting to fill the spaces. I want a piece where you can just look at it and see one thing and then see something else and then see something else. But I'm really just loving the significance as well, and being able to have things that represent important things to me, and ideas and thoughts and family and all those things. As I say, it can be quite hard working under the blanket because you can't see. It's not that easy to sort of lift up and hold up while you're stitching. That's why it's quite nice to work on the surface like with this, where I'm not having to go through to the back, but I'm still achieving that nice effect. So here I've actually just looped under one of the other stitches just to kind of anchor it, and then I'm going to start twisting up around the top of the R. So just like this. So I thought I'll just do some little videos. I won't be videoing the whole piece because obviously there's a lot of stitching down to do with all my little treasure pieces that I'll be adding. But I thought I'd show you a few of the different techniques I'm using and give you a little overview of where the piece is up to. And hopefully it might give you some ideas, because I've seen a couple of videos where folks are a bit sort of stumped by the prompt. They're like, oh, I don't have any found treasures. But as I said in one of the comments on, I think Belladora's video, I said, yeah, I consider anything that makes it into my trash, not into my trash, no, into my stash, is a found treasure. So I've found it, I've brought it into my stash. Like even this thread, it's a found treasure. I found the site where they were selling the beautiful wools from the mill. And that's definitely a found treasure. It's something that otherwise might not have been actually, had a useful life. So I'm giving it a new life and using it in my piece. And I've sent some out to my buddies, Giusy and Kim, who were the winners of the giveaway. I'm still waiting for one of my giveaway winners to get in contact. Otherwise I'll have to redraw. So I included that with the silk ribbons for silk ribbon embroidery that I sent out. So I've just wrapped the F, and now I'm just going to wrap the letter here, and I noticed that I've got a little bit of thread sticking up, so I'll probably go up there and do a final bit of wrapping as well. The great thing about doing this wrapping technique is you're keeping your precious thread on the surface. So you could even do the base letters in a less precious thread, and then do your upper wrapping, which would give a nice effect as well. So I'll finish that one, and then I'll just take myself up to the top and just fix up where it's got a little bit of fluff sticking up. I'll just be able to wrap that down, I think. So the thunder's rolling outside, so I'll be interested if you can hear that on the video. It's been a very humid, hot day. Took Travis, so when I'm filming this, it's Tuesday, which is Melbourne Cup, a public holiday here in Melbourne for a horse race, which I don't watch the horse races, but we took Travis out to a beautiful nature reserve where we haven't been to before this morning, and so he had a lovely big walk with us around that, and then they've got a special doggy swimming spot in one of the lakes there, so he absolutely loved it, went in for a really good swim, which was good because it was getting quite warm. The day really hotted up by the time we got there, but it was only about a 20-minute drive from where we are, so nice and close by. So there you go. I'll just bring it up to the camera so you can have a closer look at it. So it's just given a really nice definition to it, a wrapped effect, and I just love that it's sort of sitting within this little area. What I did as well was just added extra stitches to stitch down this piece so that it wasn't sort of sitting over the top of the letters. But I just love how as you start stitching things down, your pieces really come together. So I'll just keep that lovely piece of the green because it's still a very useful length. Just finding where my ball went, so I'll just wrap that around, and I'll have a ready-made cut piece the next time I want to use it. But just so lovely to be making use of some of these gorgeous threads that I got. So I put them in my little Perspex drawers, which sit in the cabinet next to me, so they're readily available and can actually be used, not just looked at and admired. So if I buy something, I want to make sure I'm actually, making use of it. So next up, I'm just having a look where my brown thread has gone. This is a beautiful vintage. Just look how glossy it is. See, I even look at these sorts of threads and go, they're beautiful, they're lovely, just glossy and delicious. So I'm going to use this brown thread to put in place holding stitches for my little butterflies. So again, let's make sure I am on camera. Just stand up for a moment. Yes, we can see my butterflies there. Great. Sorry, I'll just pull my chair in. And so I will show you what I'm doing for these. So I've stitched down this one already, and what I did was just did stitches holding it down along the lines within the design. So first of all, I'd use just a bit of regular Yoo-hoo glue just to put them in place. You can see they're not fully stuck down in, the wings are still sort of sitting up, but enough to just hold them and mean that I don't need pins and that they do sort of sit flat against the fabric. So I might come over and I might work on this one over here. So I'll probably start with a stitch maybe. So I'm going to just pop up through the fabric, and you could use a brown or a black. I'm just using this glossy brown because I like this particular colour of thread. And again, it's great to just have some of these regular sewing threads. You don't need to use like an embroidery floss for a lot of your tacking down and things, and you can get these just regular sewing threads quite reasonably priced from op shops or charity stores or thrift stores. So if you're just starting out with stitching, it's great to keep an eye out for those sorts of basic supplies. And again, keeping them nice and proximate to where you stitch is really helpful for being able to just kind of make use of them. So I've again just got my threads sitting in drawers next to my sewing area. Even if they get a bit out of order, they're just really easy to reach and grab. And then I've got some bigger rolls of threads as well, just sitting in a basket here as well. So sometimes I try and make use of the bigger rolls. My aim's to one day use some of them up. That will mean I've been really successful in using my supplies. But I've got a pretty good colour range now. Although those of you who watch my videos will see that I sometimes still buy the second-hand threads from the Sewing Lair online op shop. I'm sure you can hear that thunder now. It's really crackling outside, rolling in. Hopefully it doesn't get too much in the way of the sound on the video. So what I'm doing is just popping up with my needle at the edge of the butterfly and then taking a stitch up following the lines on the butterfly. And even if I add some of my own lines, it's just going to be beautiful detail. So the rain is starting now, so we'll just have to see how I go with the filming and the sound with the rain. Hopefully it will be all right. I'll try and talk at a decent volume. So yeah, it's funny having a public holiday on a Tuesday. Lots of people would have had the Monday off, but yeah, unfortunately I had to work. But Alex was working as well, so it was okay. Anyway, at least this will be good for the garden. I did give the garden a water this morning because I've got all my tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, basil in the garden, so I didn't want it dying off in the heat because I've got a bit out of practice of watering the garden over winter. I kind of let it just look after itself. I've got self-seeded things that come up. The bulbs all just came up of their own volition. So I'm just working my way around with that same technique of just stitching down the wings. And so it's great if you can find a design element where you can kind of achieve the stitching down, but also add that, because it's lovely when you touch it now, you can feel that extra sort of line detail in place there. So I'm happy to be having treasures like these, these belt buckles, which Betty had given to me, but I kind of didn't know what I was going to use them for. But it's great to be able to add them to this piece, and given this piece will be yeah, sitting on, hanging down. Either I'm now toying with it, might even sit in my craft room because I've got some cabinets in here and it could actually just hang down there as well. But otherwise over the back of the couch, and you'd see it as you come up the stairs. I'm not planning to wash it. Someone said, oh, maybe I shouldn't attach some of the embellishments and things if you're wanting to wash it, but I'm hoping I can just, yeah, have it out and give it the odd dusting possibly. Give it a bit of a pounding out. So I'm now coming around the other side, and I'm just, hopefully I am on camera. I think I am, yes. So I'm just putting stitches across where the lines are. Doesn't matter if they don't go exactly where the lines are because you're just adding your own beautiful detailing elements. But you just want to put enough in place that it's going to hold those edges down and stop them sort of getting frayed or damaged. And I find it easier coming up at the edge I want to be on and then going across and in. But you can go whichever direction works best for you. Rain is really pounding down now. Don't think I know. I was just thinking, did I leave anything on the washing line? I know I brought my washing in earlier on, so that was a good, because they did say that they thought that we were going to get storms. And we'd taken Travis down to the park just before, the dog park just nearby, and it looked like the storm was actually going past us, but no, it's definitely here now. I don't mind if it's raining tonight. It will mean just another nice little bit of stitching time. Okay, so I'm now down to the bottom, and what I'll come up do is create the antennas. So I'll pop those coming out from a bit inset from the head, just because if you go right on the edge you're likely to sort of split your fabric. So I'll put one antenna. It's getting very heavy rain now, so hopefully you can still hear me. If not, I apologise. Hopefully you can still watch even if you can't hear me. And now I might just put a little bobbly bit. I don't think I did bobbly bits on these ones, but I might just do a little French knot with 3 wraps going back into the fabric. Normally you should hold onto your thread, but I don't mind if it has a little bit more bobble. I can always put an extra stitch in. Now there's a little bit of thread coming off the fabric, so I'll just take that little bit of thread off with my scissors, and I'll do a second bobbly bit here. Almost got too little thread to do it, but we'll see how we go. I'll try and hold on to it a bit more this time. As I say, it's a bit of degree of difficulty when you're working on a very large format piece like this, but you find ways to do things. So that one worked okay. With this one that's a bit looser, I'll just bring a stitch through it and just anchor it down, and it will be just fine. So if you ever do get a French knot that's sort of sitting up a bit, you can always just bring a stitch through and hold it down. There we are. So I might show you now. I'll just bring, actually I can bring that one up to the camera again, and you can just, you probably can't even see where the stitches are, but it's given a lovely stitched effect. It's got its nice little antennas on it, and the edges are all nicely sealed on as they are on this piece, whereas with these ones you can see they're still sort of sitting up a bit. The rain is really coming down. So I thought I might now show you, and I'll need to bring my piece a little bit over, I think, for this. Oops, just knocked my scissors down, but I've got a spare pair, so that's okay. Might bring it this way. So I've added this little piece next to this C monogram, which is lovely. Now, what did I just do with my needle? Now I'm wondering where my needle has gone. I am not sure where I put my needle. It's a perennial Christine problem where you don't actually pay attention to where it's gone into the fabric. I am shocking at doing that. I used to get in so much trouble when I'd be sitting down on the couch downstairs and I'd say to Alex, I'm not sure where the needle's gone. Okay, so I've added this beautiful piece of vintage lace, or actually I'm pretty certain this is antique lace. It's got quite a bit of discolouring on it as well, and it was just a little skerrick of that size, so I thought it'd be perfect to just fit in as I have. So it's literally just buttered up to and not wasting any of the lace, putting it underneath the other piece, and I thought it just came round lovely. What I did on this piece was I just used a crochet thread. I've got a whole container of crochet threads of all different colours, and I just used some of that to put some little spiky stitches out from the design, and I'll probably actually end up going around and putting maybe like a little bead on the end, or maybe little French knots eventually as well. But what I wanted to show you first was how you can stitch down fabric like this and just work on the surface if you've got a particularly big and bulky piece like a blanket. So let me just put my needle in. I'm going to grab my ever used A to Z of embroidery stitches, and I'm going to slide it under the area where I'm going to be working, because I don't want to risk going into a lower layer of my blanket. So then I'm going to thread up my needle, again just with some vintage sewing thread in a colour that's a nice sort of match for this. So put that up there. And so we'll just put a knot in the end of our thread, do our knotting technique where we place the thread on our finger, place the needle over the thread, and then do a couple of wraps, or probably I usually do 3 or 4, and then we slide the knot down our thread to the end, and then I'm going to pop through from the back. So I've started already stitching this down, but I just wanted to show you this little technique if you want to work on the top of the fabric. I managed to pull my whole thread through, so we'll just redo that. So I've got the knot on the back, and because I don't want to constantly have to be going down to the back and then lifting up my fabric and coming up from the back, I put the book underneath, and what I'm going to do is then go back into the fabric, but just from the surface of it, and then angle my needle out and pop out at another point. And then this is really just to get this piece tacked and stitched down firmly in place. And so I'm just going to work my way around the design, always going back in close to where I came up, and then angling forward and having the book underneath. Make sure it's a book that you don't mind getting some little potential scratches or something on the cover of, or you could just use some an old scrap pad or something like that. But it just means that you can just stay on the surface and not be really inconvenienced by having to take the needle underneath and then come back up. It's a bit quicker, a bit more relaxing, not going to put as much strain on your hands, and you can just move your way around the design, getting all your little elements stitched down. So I'm just checking that I am still on camera. Hopefully I am. I might just need to wiggle my piece even a bit further down and across. Oops, and I just knocked off one of my containers of treasures, but that's okay. We will deal with that in a moment. Okay. The hazards of having things on your desk when you're filming and moving around a big blanket. So again, I'm just going to pop across and pop out over here. I could even use one of my more sword-like needles that's even longer. But because this is quite a delicate lace, I just want to just use a fine needle. But I'm just wanting to sort of come across and then pop up and then put a stitch in over like the edge of this piece here, and then just continue my way across, anchoring it all down so it's nice and safely secured, but it also just gives you a really lovely cohesive looking piece. So we'll just keep doing this across this piece. The rain is still pelting down at quite an angle out the window actually. So it's lace upon lace because I've got that lace tablecloth over the blanket surface because I didn't want to kind of have the full garishness of the orange and green of the blanket, but I do love how it just sort of has those colours shining through, and then I'm then able to bring it out in some of the golds and other colours that I'm adding to the piece with the burgundy and green theme. So again, just working my way across and angling my needle through. So just a great way to make sure that you get your piece securely anchored down. So I'll do a few more little stitches and then we'll tie that off, and we might then move on to adding the little A and C embellishment. So keeping that monogram theme flowing across the piece, keeping the hearts, the laces, the trims. Yeah, it's really, really lovely. Very happy to be having these pieces yeah, added in and yeah, treasured now rather than sitting in a box somewhere. They will be looked at and enjoyed, and kind of even more beautiful by their combining, I think. So having a piece like that with a piece of vintage lace, with the nana, with my own embroidery, it's just, yeah, I think it's going to be such a special piece, this one. I love all my pieces, but yeah, this one is going to be so full of things that I just, yeah, do consider absolute treasures. Found treasures, collected treasures, saved treasures, gifted treasures, all sorts of treasures. I feel like all the prompts kind of flow into each other, like hearts are sometimes found on laces, botanical is on laces, the buttons are treasures within themselves. Okay, so now I'll take it through to the back, and as you can see, it's done a pretty good job. I probably still need to anchor down a few other points, but it's done a very, very good job. So I'll take it to the back, but as I've said, it's quite a degree of difficulty, and it would have been much harder if I was trying to sort of do that maneuver with each stitch. So this definitely works well as a technique for when you're working on a thick and large canvas, as it were, if it's a blanket or something like this. I know most people are doing much smaller than a huge blanket, but it's just happened that this, yeah, this blanket came along at the time that we were kicking off the project, and it just seemed like, yeah, such a treasure to be able to work on it. So let me grab out these and let's see if I've got a colour that would be good to use for stitching this down. Thinking I might use, I think that will probably blend into it okay. I'm not sure if I've got any better colour to use. Could always use this clear. I've not actually used this one before. It is a second-hand one, but can't even quite see where I get it out. I think it starts there. There we go. So that would be clear. Maybe I'll use that. It's actually very fine as well. Okay, I'll have the problem that I won't even be able to see it. I can't even quite see how much I've got off the reel. Okay, let's put that over there. And I'm eager to get started on putting together my Stitchery swaps from the first round. My idea has been materializing in my head. So I've got a bit of a plan, and I've found something that I think I'm going to be using as part of it, which I can repurpose, which is great. And it will provide sufficient space for the current Stitchery swaps I'm doing and future ones as well. So again, I'm going to pop through from the back with my knot in this very clear thread, which you can probably barely see, and I'm thinking I'll just put this piece so it just sort of sits across here-ish, I think. So I'm just having a look where I popped up, and I guess I'll do that same technique again, where if I can, I'll work on the surface and probably do some little loops around to just anchor this piece down. So yeah, you can barely see the thread, so it does make it a bit hard even when you're working on it. Now I might just need to drag my piece down a smidge again. So I hope you're doing some nice stitching while I'm doing my own stitching. Just thought it might be good to kind of talk through my techniques and do a bit of getting things down on the piece. Otherwise you might kind of see it at the end and wonder, oh, how did she work out where that went, or what she added there, or how she anchored it down. Because most things can be added on, particularly on a dimensional piece like this. I know some people are putting them in books or in frames, so they're a bit more restricted about how much they can add. I'm glad originally I was thinking a framed piece, but I was going to use like one of those shadow box type sort of frames. But really happy that this came together. It's turned it into a really special family piece, and kind of set the direction, I think, for what I'm subsequently doing. So every piece on this does have a fair bit of meaning attached to it, either through the items being from someone, or just adding sort of references to those people that mean a lot to me. So again, I've got the book underneath here, so that's just letting me sort of push my needle through and then pass my thread. But being this clear thread, I can barely see it. You definitely won't be able to see the thread. You'll just be able to see me moving my needle and gradually getting this piece anchored down. And I can always do some further stitches later on. But I'll just use this bit of thread up first, and then we'll get the button sewn down. I don't know if I'll need to put a Suffolk puff. I think I did at one point have a Suffolk puff to go with this one, but goodness only knows. I'm just really struggling to even see where my thread is. I have to almost feel for it rather than look for it. Oops. It's very fine thread as well. It almost feels like hair. That's that fine. Or my hair, which is very fine hair. Lots of hair, but very fine. Oops. I managed to put my needle too far through. I want to angle it up at the edge. Ouch. Managed to poke myself with my needle. Never good. So yeah, definitely invisible thread for sure. Does make it a bit hard when you can't actually even see where your thread is. So just do a few stitches to anchor it down. So as you can see, it's done a pretty good job. I've left that edge is still sitting up a little bit, but that's okay. We can always come back and pick that up. So I'm going to take my needle through to the back and tie that off. If I can see where the spot is, where I've come through. Few overlapping stitches and a few knots at the back just to make sure it is held. It's definitely a very strong thread, that is for sure. Okay. So then we'll put our little button in place, I think. I can probably just use a regular, so we won't actually be able to see that, but it's whether I want to add any sort of button or anything underneath. Oh, it's got a cute little girl, I don't know if you can see that, cute little girl swinging down. So I might take this one. Just need to give it a trim off. So I'm thinking that will just help with the shank, because it is a shanked button, and it will just hold it a bit more stable, I think, within the fabric. There we go. Just cutting the little threads that attach the pieces. Very vintage, these ones, and been well washed and dried in the sun. So I love the way they've got a much more faded sort of look to them. They're very soft, very old looking. So I'll push that down into it, and then I'm thinking this can then just sit within it. I might actually turn it so it's on the angle that matches with where the shank is. And I think that will work quite well. Probably just need to get the little thready bits off the side. Have it like that and like that. So what I might be able to do is actually sew it first of all onto the Suffolk puff, and then sew the Suffolk puff in might work. So it was quite a bit of luck finding these in the Bright op shop with A&C on them. I just had to get them. Definitely a found treasure. It found me. So what I've done is just popped the shank into that little crevice within the button, and then I'm just going to start passing my needle, get rid of the end off my thread. And if I can anchor it first to this, then I can anchor the Suffolk puff, and it will be easier than stitching through the blanket into the shank. So hopefully that gives you an idea as well. So that's probably enough stitches attaching that into there. Still got a little bit of the thread attached onto that one. And then I'm just going to nest that into the crevice here, and then I probably will have to go under the blanket for this to stitch through, but a lot easier than trying to stitch into the back of the button. So I'll just bring it's all these little details, the way you might not see it when you first look at it, but you know it's there, and yeah, it just adds another little dimension when you're looking in here. You're like, oh, there's something under there, an interesting fabric. Yep, a vintage Suffolk puff. So I'm just coming up from underneath. As you can see, it does have its own degree of difficulty with the blanket. But I don't mind. I just take my time when I'm doing my stitching down in the evenings, if I am having to sort of stitch through the blanket like this. But where I can, I'll work on the surface like I showed you. And I don't mind that this Suffolk puff has a tiny bit of blue in it, which isn't really the colour for my piece, but it's going to be mostly obscured by the button. Just keep working, sort of working my way around, making sure it's stitched down. Probably put a few stitches in towards the side and the top. Just put some stitches up here. Put some stitches here. And then we might have to finish up, because I do hear Alex and Travis coming up the stairs, I think, to say, Mama, it is time to cook dinner. Not Alex, Travis has had his first dinner, but he gets a second dinner when we have ours. Mostly vegetables, but I think they're at the door. I think the invaders, the barbarians, have arrived to say that they would like their dinners cooked, please. So I'll finish this stitching off, and then I will head down to make some dinner. So I'll finish that off on the back, but there you go. Hopefully you can see that. So that's where we're up to on the piece. I am planning to continue moving across the piece, and I think I'll do the vintage haberdashery because that will go nicely with the Nana piece, and then I'll add my piece for my grandpa over here, which I've already made. And just to show you, this is the fabric that I took the butterflies from. So I just cut them out from even a small section. This was never a big section of fabric. You can get a huge number of butterflies, so always keep an eye out for interesting pieces where you can take like individual elements, because I'm thinking I'll probably add some more butterflies to this piece. It will sort of be something that can graduate across. So thank you for watching. I will go now, and I'll see you soon for a further installment, because I've got lots to add as part of this Found Treasures piece. Thanks everyone. Bye.